Alright, hello, welcome to a new video. Today we're in this problem called move zeros to 83. I did try to solve this just like 20 minutes ago, but I took too much time trying to figure it out, so I kind of searched up the video. And yeah, I'll just kind of go through what I did wrong and just go through the whole process again. Alright, so, alright, so, yeah, so let's go through the problem again. Alright, so given an integer array nums, move all the zeros to the end of it while maintaining the relative order of the non-zero elements. Note that you must do this in place without making a copy of the array. So I'm going to go through this pretty fast because I already did it. So for input and output, it's pretty simple. The input is just the array nums, and it's just the int array. And then output's going to be nums again, but all zeros move to the back, right? And then to note, must do this in place. So no new arrays. Cool. So I guess I don't have any questions, so let's go through some examples really quick. So for example, let's say we have nums equal to like 0, 1, right? The most basic example. And so the output would just be 1, 0, right? And I guess example 2, let's make it more complicated. So let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 0, 4, right? So this is fine. This 1 and 2 and 3 is fine. All that we know mentally is that we need to swap this 0 and 4. So what we do is that we're going to swap. So the output would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, right? Cool. So example 3, let's make it have more zeros. Let's make it have 3 zeros because why not? So 0, 0, 0, then 1, right? All right, so here we know that these are all zeros, but um, but my intuition is that we're going to swap this 0 with this 1, so just faster, right? So 1, 0, 0, 0. So this 0 that we started off with at index 0 is we're going to keep going until we see a number that is non-zero, and then we're going to swap it with that, right? So that was my intuition, right? So in my plan, I mean in my match, right? I'll talk about my previous plan later. So in my match, I had the basic like if statements, while loop, 2 pointers. I just basically had those. And then I had like an if statement. I can do it either way, where I was like, okay, so if num is equal to 0 or num is not equal to 0, right? Yeah, I had that, so that kind of got my mind going and my cogs going. And then I didn't say while loop, I said for loop. And then 2 pointers. I said one for non-zeros and one for zeros. So I said that, and I kind of got my cogs going too. But in my plan, what I did was that I said, okay, so we're gonna have a 0 pointer, and then equals to 0, and then we're going to go through iterate through nums, and then for I in range all the way up to the length of nums, right? We're going to find a 0, so find 0 and swap with 0. Once found non-zero. Now this way of looking at it, it's very problematic because in the case where I forgot, but I would find like I wouldn't find a non-zero, so I would find a 0, right? And then I would swap it. But it's weird because what if you start with a non-zero, right? And then ZP is at 0, right? And then it doesn't start at a 0, right? We're basically gonna keep on swapping. We're gonna swap with each other, and then we're gonna. I guess the way that I was looking at it, it was like it makes. Now that I look at it, it makes kind of sense, but not like this way. Um, but the intuition here um, is that we want to have a pointer that will always be in the front. So I guess we can say left and right, right? So left and right. Right, left will always search for us, while right looks for non-zeros. I mean, left will always stay the same. It'll only change if we find a non-zero, right? So in this way, where if the right pointer finds a non-zero, right? We're gonna swap left and right? And then once that happens, we're gonna increment left by 1, and then that's it. Return nums. I don't think we return anything at all, actually. I don't know. Return anything? You're not returning anything. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much it. It's very simple. It's just that the intuition that I had was misguided. I mean, it wasn't misguided. It was just like I thought about these two things hard set. We need 2 pointers, and we need to keep track of the pointer where the index is 0 and a pointer where it's not 0, and then swap it when we find both. But it'll be kind of problematic if we found both if we need to keep track of that, right? Um, I mean, I think that could still work. But this way is just way better, and it makes more sense, right? For the future too. So for R in range, we go through R. L is going to be at 0, right? And then if we find a non-zero at R, then we swap the values, and then we increment L. So then in this case, right, when we find a 0, we don't do anything, but left is still here. So when we find a non-zero, we basically swap it, right? So let's say it was like that, right? 2, 3. So let's say it's like that. So left is right here now, and then we find R, and then we just keep swapping it. So this is 2, right? And this is 3, and so on. So it's very intuitive and like how it works. Like it just makes sense. But in the case where we do have an array of like a lot of non-zeros and then a 0, of course we're gonna oops, like 8. Of course we're gonna be swapping all of them in place. So this is L, it swaps, L swaps with right, L swaps with right, L swaps with right, increments, left swaps with right, increments, left swaps with right, increments, and all the way up to here, right? So left swaps and then increments at the 0 to the 0. And then we R gets incremented. Um R gets incremented, and then like, okay, so R is not a non-zero, is a non-zero, I mean, so we're gonna swap it with L. And so yeah, that's only intuition that I didn't like because we're doing operations where it doesn't solve the problem, but sometimes you gotta do operations that don't solve the problem that will later on ultimately solve the problem. So that just makes sense if you look at it in that way. But I think I'm just starting off again, doing interview problems, and I used to have that mindset, but it's been like 4 months since I haven't done an interview problem. So I guess I gotta grow that mindset again. Instead of hard coding it to like solve the problem, I gotta think of like loopholes to kind of not really loopholes, but like different strategies to kind of solve problems instead of just brute forcing it. So yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Good thing I went through this and kind of talked about it. So what we can do is I can just code it up without copy pasting, because I already explained it. So for L0 and for R in range, which is right to the length of nums, if nums at R is not a 0, they're going to swap. So nums R, nums at L, go to nums at R, nums at L, and nums at L is going to equal to nums at R. And then we're going to increment L by 1. And then that's it. So run. Okay, submit. Cool. Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool.